What is going on, Lego Maniacs? It's Ty Lego Guy here, and today we are doing the one and only UCS Slave 1. That set 75060 had 1996 pieces, 5 minifigs, retailed for 200 US and came out in 2015. Now nowadays this set's going for 260 new or about 217 used. Honestly, fantastic set. So much detail put into it. We're going to look into the movie pictures just to see how accurate it is, but I'm just going to say this set's spot on as far as how it's supposed to look like on the exterior. Just a great looking model, but we're going to get into exactly why. But enough talk, let's get right into it. And to start this review off, we're actually going to take a look at the box. So a very nice, hefty looking box. I can barely fit it in the video camera, but as you guys can see on the bottom, it shows all the different features, which is pretty fantastic. There is not a ton of features with this, I will say that. It's just an extremely well put together model. Sound like Anakin, extremely well put together droid when he's talking about 3PO. But yeah, nice looking box. On the side here too, they also give you the size of the ship, which is absolutely fantastic. I mean, look how big this guy is. And then also it shows you all the minifigs. I don't really include Han and Carbonite. I think that's kind of, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about that. I just don't really consider it a minifig, but they consider it a minifig. Anyways, great looking box. Let's now get into the model. And here the model is. So I can barely get this thing on the screen, but because it's kind of tall and somewhat slender, so I can somewhat give you a 360 view of it. As you can see, this is a big ship. This is the largest Slave 1 they've ever made, which is what you'd expect, and it's just such a good looking model. So now what we're going to do, now that we got the 360 view out of the way, we're going to break it down section by section. And to start the ship off, we're actually going to take a look at the cockpit where Boba Fett himself sits down. So how you can access that is this actually is held in by Technic pieces. Big, beautiful windshield. That's one of the biggest windshields they've ever made for a Lego set, at least that I'm aware of. And there's the cockpit. So nice looking stickers, nice looking computers, just a great all in all looking model. As you can see, he has 2 blasters on the wall, one right there and one right there. One thing that's kind of a negative about this set is the older Slave 1s, you see when I tilt this down, the wings kind of go down. This one does not do that naturally. With the old one, the cockpit would go up and down like the seat. Doesn't do that with this one. You have to manually do it, which isn't the end of the world, but it would be kind of nice if it, if it did move along with the other one. But you know what, when they designed this, it's a UCS set, it's huge, so they probably had to change it a little bit compared to the playset models. But yeah, that's the cockpit itself. Let's now take a look at the other areas of the ship. And the next area I thought we could take a look at is the engines. So good looking. I mean, I'd love to light this set up. It's just, I mean, it has little lights here too, like landing lights. It's just a fantastic looking model. Look at all the greebling, all the detail. Just awesome. I mean, I love this ship. We're actually gonna put it in its seated position as well, so you guys can kind of see what that kind of looks like. The other thing that's really cool about this too is just like in the movies, when he shoots off rockets, or Boba Fett has tons of weapons on his person and on his ship, which makes perfect sense. As you guys can see, I'm pulling out these little they're kind of like little, they're almost doors. They're not doors though, but you get what I'm saying. And inside of them, there is obviously his weaponry. So I like how they kind of distinguished it and made it different too. Like you have some of the seismic charges. I think this is what these are supposed to be. And then the rockets as well. So I mean, just awesome looking. I do love that. And then also let's take a look at the turrets. Great looking turrets. I mean, what I like too is they didn't get too gimmicky, making this have a whole bunch of flick fire missiles or anything like that. It's just a really well detailed, good looking set. Actually, now what we'll do is we'll take a look at the stand. Well, not at the stand, at the plaque. And one thing I always appreciate about the UCS sets is the plaque, giving you all the details, what this ship's all about. What I found interesting is the capacities: 1 pilot, 1 co-pilot, 6 prisoners, 2 passengers, 40 metric tons of cargo. I didn't know it could fit 6 prisoners, so obviously this is somewhat of a hefty boy. Like, this is not a tiny ship by any means. It's definitely not a fighter. But now let's take a look at the model in the seated position. And here the slave one is in its landed position. So let's just give you guys a 360 view. Great looking model. I mean, a lot of you guys like this ship in its landed position more than, you know, in flight. And I can definitely see why some of you feel that way. I mean, it just looks so great. But first off, how you kind of get to Han in Carbonite is you just flick this up, and literally that brings Han right out. There's a little clip that kind of holds him into place, and there he is. We're gonna get more into him in the minifig section. And you know, just to kind of show you guys what it looks a little bit more in the interior, it's just basically Technic. You probably saw when when we looked at the cockpit, as that piece flies down. You know, it's kind of Technic built in the inside, which is kind of needed, you know, to build this model. You can't really do it without it. The other thing I wanted to kind of mention is this set's very difficult to kind of pick up. You really want to have 2 hands holding it, or just transport it on the stand, because if you try and do it other ways, like if you view this like a play set, you're gonna drop it and then you're gonna be really sad. But anyways, great looking model, love all the detail, look at all the stickers on it. I mean, stickers, we all don't really like stickers, but it adds so much detail. You know, none of these are printed pieces, but you know what, I'd rather have stickers than, you know, nothing at all, right? But great looking model. Let's now take a look at the minifigs and yeah, get into that. And before we do that, I just wanted to kind of show you guys a little bit more what the interior of this set looks like. You know, instead of just mentioning it, that's basically what you get. A lot of Technic and kind of, you know, some bricks in there. There is a bit of a space for the interior, but yeah, I mean, they could have used it if they really concentrate on making interior. I just thought I'd show you guys, you know, so you know what the space we're dealing with in this model. Anyways, let's now get into the minifigs. And to begin, let's take a look at the most common minifigs in this set. Then we'll get into the more rare ones. So just to get this out of the way, they got Han and Carbonite. Very nice looking little piece. Try and show you guys all the different little angles on this. And what's interesting too is this is how they kind of hold him in. So he just puts each of his hands on there and they clip on really nicely. Anyways, that's the Carbonite version of Han. Now let's actually take a look at Han himself. So nice looking minifig. Give you guys a 360 view of these two guys. No back torso printing. And then this is just a standard stormtrooper from back in the day. Now what I will show you though is you can kind of make it like, you know, when he gets frozen and his eyes close, it's kind of like supposed to be kind of showing you that, giving you that idea. But yeah, nice looking minifigs. The other thing I wanted to show you is the Stormtrooper's face, and believe it or not, it's an angry clone face. Anyways, those are the 3 minifigs. Let's now move on to the 2 rare minifigs and the 1 extremely rare. You guys can probably guess what that is. And here we have the final 2. So as you guys can see, let's just get the Bespin guard out of the way. Nice looking minifig, nothing too crazy. He has back torso printing, no back face printing. Yeah, no leg printing, but you know, nice looking minifig all in all. Now let's move on to the main reason, or the best minifig I should say, in this set. Many times this is the reason why most of you guys will maybe buy this set or appreciate this set, I should say, because I mean the slave one is fantastic. So let's just give you guys a 360 view of this guy. Beautiful looking minifig, great looking arm printing. That's the first thing you guys are probably going to notice. Let's show you guys the other arm. He has his nice insignia there, his wrist rockets, just so awesome. His foot printing, leg printing, belt printing, this guy got it all. Also, what's really cool about this Bubba is he doesn't have a typical angry clone face. He has actually a slightly different face, kind of like a smirk. So I thought that was really cool. The other thing too is this is a material piece. It is not, you know, plastic or anything like that. And what I'll actually do now is let's just show you guys the back torso printing. So nice looking. It's very similar to Django, whereas Django's is all silver. Bubba's is a little bit more worn. He doesn't take care of his stuff as good. Anyways, beautiful looking minifig. Definitely one of my favorites. Here he is, all built back up. possibly one of the best or the best Boba Fett Legos ever made. But now we got the minifigs out of the way, let's now take a look at the movie footage or movie clips and just see how accurate this set really is. And the movie clips or movie pics were actually quite easy just because the actual manual has pictures of it, you know, of the model inside the booklet. Plus it has a little bit of a story with it as well, which I'm actually gonna read on screen. And I think you guys will kind of like that. So we're not gonna read this. This is just the designer, very intelligent guy. And then here's the Slave One in its landed position. Just looks great. I mean, this looks so much like the model. They just knocked it out of the park. They could maybe have made it a little bit more rugged looking on the bottom, but we're getting really picky. Obviously, they've done a fantastic job. And what I really wanted to read you guys was this little read up right here. And hopefully you guys kind of like this idea because I hope to do this with more UCS sets. It says, Jango Fett made numerous alterations to Slave One, including larger upgraded quad drive engines and power generators, which made even a ship as small as Slave One capable of sublight speed usually seen only in Y-wing starfighters. In the years following Jango's death, the ship underwent heavy modifications, including the addition of a cloaking device, proton torpedoes, and a stolen sensor masking and jamming array, which makes the ship essentially invisible to almost all sensors and allows it to sneak into any planet or Imperial center without being detected. Perhaps most famous, Boba Fett used Slave One to transport Han Solo's carbon-frozen body to Jabba the Hutt on Tatooine to collect the bounty on Han Solo. Boba Fett continued to use primarily Slave One to capture bounties, and the ship became feared throughout the galaxy. So I just thought that was really cool. Here's a couple more artist conceptions of it. I mean, they've obviously knocked this out of the park. That just looks like the Lego version that we just looked at. And then I'll just show you guys the next area, a little bit more about the designer. You guys can pause this at any point if you want to read this up. Not particularly, I mean, it's interesting, but you probably don't want to hear me read it on screen, right? And then here it is in French. So anyways, great looking model. I'll actually center in on this as well. There's a little bit more story there, although we won't get into that. It's actually very interesting. Anyways, those are the movie picks. I thought that they would help out with the review. It's so awesome that they include this in the manual. But now let's get into the end of the review and get my final thoughts. Well guys, that was my review. Do hope you enjoyed it. Honestly, this model is amazing. It's probably one of the best UCS sets that's ever been made, and UCS sets are already like up here. I just think it's a fantastic model. The engines look great. You know how much of a sucker I am for engines. If you guys have been watching this channel, the front of the ship, the cockpit, you know, the little missiles coming out, the main gunners on the bottom of the ship right here. I mean, just a great looking model. Very few things, if anything, they could do to improve the exterior of the model. Now, it doesn't have an interior. That is a bit of a fault. I mean, because this ship was somewhat livable, if you actually look into the universe, Star Wars universe. But a UCS set really, its main purpose is not to have an interior. It's just supposed to look really accurate, and this model does that. I mean, we saw the pictures. I love the manual, how they give you a story with it. UCS sets are so great, and this is one of the greatest UCS sets I think Lego's ever made. But let me know what you guys think about this set, if you like it, if you don't, if I'm overrating it, if you possibly own it. I just think it's a fantastic looking model. But anyways, that's all I got for you today. But if you like this video, leave it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, definitely consider subscribing and click that bell so you're notified for any future Star Wars reviews, comparisons. We do it all on this channel. I love Star Wars, and yeah, I really like doing you know, any of these reviews, especially looking at UCS sets, just because there's so much awesome detail. But yeah, again, that's all I got for you today. But thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.